3. Sinister Janitor Tales Revealed. Disturbing true stories of cursed, haunted encounters. Sarah wasn't sure why she took the job, but the Bills didn't care. Walking through the high school, the shadows loomed long and dark, transforming familiar hallways into a haunted maze. The dust seemed to swirl around her, taunting her memories of laughter and cheer from years gone by. But tonight, under the dim flickering lights, the trophies and photos smiled eerily down at her, whispering secrets of a time lost. Every creak echoed like a warning. The air grew heavy as she pushed her cart forward, reminding herself that this was just a small step for a better life for her son Ethan. Yet with each passing minute, something felt off. Flickers of movement darted at the edge of her vision. She froze, heart racing. Just shadows? Or something worse? Somewhere near the gym, laughter echoed, but no kids were supposed to be around. Only her. Panic crawled up her spine. When her cleaning supplies began to disappear from the cart, her heart raced harder. What was happening? It's just practical jokes from years of youthful mischief, she told herself, trying to shake the unsettling feeling. But as the seconds ticked by, whispers crawled into her ears. They felt ancient. The atmosphere twisted and lurched like something alive. As she approached the supply room, a chill swept past her, like the touch of a ghost. The door slammed shut behind her with a thunderous crack that made her jump. Cold dread filled her veins. Something lurked in these hallways, something sinister, waiting for her to understand the truth. She stumbled upon old, torn notes tucked beneath a shelf, written by janitors long gone. "Beware the spirit of the disgraced teacher," they warned, "for he haunts these walls, those cursed bricks that trap the echoes of lost lives." Sarah's breath hitched, the hairs on her neck stood at attention. She looked around, feeling the pulse of unseen eyes watching, waiting. Panic surged through her as dark figures flitted past the edges of her sight, whispering threats woven into the very fabric of her community. Then she turned to see it, a masked silhouette, its presence exuding malevolence. It was a threat born from years of buried secrets from the neighborhood she thought she knew. The fear of betrayal washed over her. Her heart pounded, a primal instinct overtaking her. She had to protect Ethan. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Shadows twisted into mocking forms, revealing secrets too dreadful to imagine. The laughter from before flourished into bitter weeping, like the cries of those lost. Just as she thought she was on the verge of understanding, a voice rang out from the dark, undoubtedly familiar, yet filled with terror. "Mom, where are you?" Ethan's cry echoed, piercing, surreal. In that moment, everything shifted, every fear solidified. She understood then. She wasn't merely fighting for her life. The darkness sought her son, too. Panic exploded inside her. The walls tightened in menacing embrace, and Sarah spun, heart racing. What had she unleashed? What awaited in the shadows? The school had turned into a nightmare, and the next chapter of her fight was just beginning. But could she face the truth and protect the one she loved most? The flickering lights cast uneven shadows as Sarah's mind raced with thoughts of Ethan. His voice haunted her, echoing through the empty halls. Fear wrapped around her like a choking vine, pulling her deeper into the dark. She could not lose him, not like this. "Ethan," she called out, her voice trembling. The silence that followed felt heavy, a suffocating weight that pressed down upon her chest. The air was thick with dread, pulsating with a life of its own. She stepped backward, fear gripping her throat, as the school felt alive, but not in a comforting way. With shaky hands she reached for her phone. Perhaps she could call him, but the screen flickered and died, as if answering the darkness itself. A dread gnawed at her stomach. She had to find him. The echoes of her past, the spirits trapped in this place, pulled her toward the gym where the laughter had come from. She willed herself to be brave. "I have to, for Ethan." Moving cautiously, she felt each step could unleash something horrific. As she neared the double doors of the gym, cold air rushed out to meet her, and she hesitated. The laughter resonated again, a chilling mix of joy and agony. It was taunting her. She gripped the doorknob, her palm slick with sweat. With a hard twist, the doors swung open to reveal a ghostly sight. The gym was empty, but the atmosphere crackled with restless energy. The old basketball court lay beneath a veil of dust. The scoreboard glowed ominously in a fading light. "Ethan!" she shouted, desperation bleeding into her voice. The laughter morphed into a cacophony, like a monstrous choir of lost children. It felt malicious, wrapping its tendrils around her soul. Sarah searched the shadows, the basketball hoops casting long, dark figures that loomed like the remnants of apathy lingering in the air. She could feel hundreds of eyes watching her, judging her resolve. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the far side of the gym. Heart racing, she turned toward the sound. The bleachers creaked and groaned, as if something was stirring beneath them. "Ethan!" she screamed again, her voice meeting with silence. Then a whisper snaked into her ear.
Glimmering with malevolence. "Mommy can't help you now." Her blood chilled. The voice was not Ethan's. An apparition of dark energy brushed against her skin, chilling her bones. Panic surged through her veins. She was not alone here. She turned, ready to flee, when a form emerged from behind the bleachers. A tall, slender figure wearing a tattered uniform. The same uniform that the janitors who wrote the warnings had worn. Its face was obscured by shadows, eyes glowing like two burning coals that pierced into her very soul. Then she saw Ethan, his small figure standing calmly next to it, completely still. Dread ignited inside her. "Let him go!" Sarah screamed, but as she rushed forward, the figure turned, pulling Ethan into its desolate embrace. Everything around her twisted, the air crackled, suffocating hope with despair. She reached toward her son, but the shadows enveloped them both, spinning her into darkness. Sarah felt her spirit fray, the world blurring like a forgotten dream. As the shadows twisted tighter, she realized she wasn't just in a fight for her son. She was ensnared in this school's curse, destined to repeat the same story of loss. A scream escaped her lips, engulfed by the chaos. But in the depths of despair, a fleeting thought sparkled. What if there was a way to break the cycle? But time was slipping, and a final echo of laughter rang out, darker than night itself, pushing her toward an answer that felt just beyond her reach. What would she have to sacrifice to break the bonds of this malevolent force? Was she prepared for the truth lurking within? The shadows closed around Sarah, an engulfing wave of darkness that wrapped itself around her. She gasped for breath. The stale air of the gym morphed into a noxious fog, stealing her resolve. Somewhere in that thick, suffocating darkness was Ethan, and she would have done anything to reach him. With a sudden burst of adrenaline, Sarah lunged forward through the darkness. Each step was a battle against the unseen force that tugged at her limbs, like a chain pulling her back into the abyss. She could no longer hear the laughter. Instead, she felt a deep, throbbing silence thrumming in her bones. "Ethan!" she called again, her voice a desperate whisper that seemed to vanish amid the shadows. A low, rumbling sound echoed around her, like a monstrous heartbeat that quickened. The weight of despair settled upon her shoulders. She stumbled as images flashed, children's faces twisted in fear, their eyes wide and filled with agony, the whispers growing louder until they became a storm of noise she could hardly bear. But she pressed on. Ethan was there. He had to be. Finally, she stumbled upon the edge of the gym floor, where the light flickered weakly above. In its dim glow, she caught a glimpse of the tattered uniform. The figure stood just beyond the basketball hoop, motionless, arms wrapped around Ethan, who was still and eerily silent. The figure turned, revealing a face submerged in darkness, only its glowing eyes visible in the gloom. "Mommy," Ethan's voice echoed softly, but it felt wrong, twisted. It was the muffled sound of a distant dream, shrouded in terror. "Ethan!" Panic surged in her chest as she ran forward, but the darkness pulsated, pushing her back. It was tangible, as if the school itself fought against her intrusion. "Let him go!" The uniformed figure laughed, a deep, rattling sound that reverberated in the emptiness. "You cannot take what is mine." The whisper wove itself into her thoughts, taunting her, feeding on her fear and anger. "Stay away from him!" Sarah cried, lashing out in futility. Her fingers clawed at the void, but it was relentless. She felt her strength waning, warmth slipping away as the shadows consumed her. "Mommy," Ethan's voice grew softer, almost apologetic. The sight of him sleeping in that thing's grasp was maddening. In a desperate move, Sarah remembered the warning the janitors had left. "You have to remember," she screamed, clutching her head. "You have to fight." The shadows writhed, an unsettling sound churning around her. It almost seemed to hesitate, as if weighing her words. And for the briefest moment, the whispers quieted, the laughter fading into a stillness that felt different, charged with potential. Focusing with every ounce of will, she thought back to the memories that once anchored her soul. "I love you!" she shouted, praying her words would cut through the thick veil of darkness. "I will fight for you!" The shadows flickered, shifting as she poured her heart into that declaration. From the corner of her eye, she saw the figure recoil slightly, almost flinching as her voice pierced through its hold. Suddenly, a blinding flash burst through the haze, bright light erupting around her. Sarah shielded her eyes as the warmth of that light wrapped around her like a blanket, pushing against the cold tendrils of the shadows. But when she dared to look, the figure still stood, now obscured by swirling smoke. Ethan was there, a heartbeat away, but the chaos raged on, and she realized she hadn't won anything yet. "Mommy," he murmured again, but now it was mixed with a tremor of confusion, and even fear. "Ethan!" she cried again, feeling desperation claw at her insides. She needed to unravel this curse, find the truth buried within these walls. Would love conquer darkness? Would they fight as one, or perish in the chilling grasp of the malevolence? The light flickered once more, and for a moment, just before everything plunged back into shadow, she saw a glimmer of hope. But how long could it hold? What else would be needed to break the chains binding her and her son to this nightmare? The darkness roared to life, the shadows swirling like angry spirits.
Sarah's heart raced, her mind racing with fear and determination. She was losing him, losing them both, and desperation clawed at her lungs. Ethan! The name tore from her throat, raw and pleading, as if her voice could cut through the malevolence like a knife. The figure's eyes gleamed brighter, a sickening glow that sent chills through her veins. It held Ethan tighter, and the boy's expression twisted as if he were caught in a waking nightmare. "Mommy," he whimpered again, and that sound twisted Sarah's heart. It was a cry that both begged for help and betrayed terror. Another wave of shadows crashed against her, shoving her backwards. She stumbled, but regained her footing. Without a moment's hesitation, she charged forward, her fists clenched. She couldn't let fear paralyze her. She had to reach him. The fabric of the gym felt like it was alive, writhing underfoot, as though the very foundation was a living entity determined to keep her at bay. "Let him go!" she screamed again, fighting against her mounting despair. The laughter of the figure echoed around her, a sinister crescendo that reverberated off the gym walls. It was a sound that spoke of age-old evils and whispered of the twisted history buried under the school. "You think love can break what was lost," the figure taunted. Its voice was a grotesque mockery, resonating with centuries of lost hope. She knew it was wrong, knew it was powerful. But in that moment, a flicker of defiance sparked within her. "I will not let you take him. You don't own him." Sarah's mind flooded with memories of laughter, of summers spent running through golden fields, of bedtime stories whispered softly in the dark. Each recollection was a thread, a lifeline, pulling her from the brink of despair. The shadows around her squirmed, retreating just slightly as she fed them raw emotion, her love acting as a shield. "Ethan, listen!" she shouted, looking directly at her son, whose eyes sparkled with confusion and fear. "You are stronger than this darkness. Remember the stories I told you. The heroes in them always won." She watched his face twist as he tried to fight whatever had a hold on him. The figure faltered, then remained, barely containing its rage. "You shouldn't have come back," it hissed, its form undulating with the shadows, as if it were struggling to keep itself anchored to the ground. With renewed fervor, Sarah stepped closer, determination lining her every move. She felt an electric pulse in the air, the faintest shift as the light flickered like a heartbeat. She reached toward Ethan, hand outstretched, as if she could bridge the gap between them with sheer will. In that split second, the air thickened. The shadows writhed violently, as if in protest. "You think you can save him? You think love can conquer this darkness?" The figure shifted closer, its breath rancid and cold. Sarah felt it pressing against her chest, a weight that threatened to crush her spirit. But she didn't relent. "You're wrong," she said, her voice steady beneath the chaos. "I will fight, for him, for every child you've
Taken. The shadows surged like waves crashing against stone, and the figure recoiled slightly, momentarily thrown off balance. In that flicker of vulnerability, hope ignited within Sarah. She surged forward, heart racing, still grasping on to that flicker. But just as quickly as it appeared, the shadows closed in around her once more. Everything shifted. The gym around her changed, becoming a distorted reflection of reality. Walls bending, the floor turning to liquid shadows. She felt herself slip, as if the ground beneath her feet was disappearing. "Mommy!" Ethan's voice called, now more frantic than ever. In the distance, beneath the surging chaos, an echo of a soft laughter bubbled up. Different from the menacing cackle, familiar, yet deeply unsettling. Then, everything imploded in darkness. Sarah was falling deeper into a nightmare devoid of light. And in that abyss of despair, a chilling whisper wrapped around her.
You were warned. Your arrival was expected. She breathed in the darkness, her soul trembling against the truths awaiting her. What did this malevolent force know about her, about Ethan? As the void consumed her, terror surged anew. The stakes were higher than she'd imagined, and the question loomed, what had she stepped into, and what sacrifices would be demanded to reclaim her son? And the darkness whispered its chilling answer. Sarah's descent into the void felt eternal, as if time itself warped within the darkness. An echoing silence surrounded her, oppressive and filled with unseen dangers. She strained to hear Ethan's voice, but the shadows swallowed every sound, every hope. Her heart pounded. Was this the end? Then, suddenly, a flicker. Her surroundings transformed. She landed roughly on a cold, hard floor, the impact knocking the breath from her lungs. Groaning, she pushed herself up and scanned her surroundings. She was no longer in the gym. Dark, grimy walls loomed above her, flickering lights casting long, twisted shadows that danced and leered. The air felt thick, saturated with a mix of mold and despair. Footsteps echoed in the distance, a slow, deliberate shuffling. Panic ignited in her chest. It was here, whatever malevolence had taken Ethan. She had to find him, but the oppressive atmosphere weighed heavily on her heart. "Mommy!" Ethan's voice echoed again, faint and desperate, like a ghost caught in an endless loop of sadness. She rushed toward the sound, heart racing, but a shadow swept before her. A figure draped in a tattered cloak that appeared and disappeared like smoke. "Ah, the mother returns," it rasped. Its voice was darker than the shadows themselves. "You think you can save him. This place craves despair, thrives on it." "Where is he?" Sarah demanded, every ounce of fear fueling her defiance. She felt a flicker of her earlier resolve. It was something more than hope. It was unyielding love. A twisted grin revealed decayed teeth. "He's right where he belongs. Yours was the blood that sealed this fate." "Blood?" Sarah's voice shook as memories flooded back. Stories of townspeople disappearing in the last century, whispered legends.
Of blood rituals to keep an ancient evil at bay. Had her return awakened it? The figure leaned closer, its breath rank and chilling. "You think your love can breach these walls? Your son is mine now, forever." "Ethan!" Sarah called out, desperation tinging her voice. "Fight it! I'm here! I love you!" She felt the shadows press against her, pulling at her legs like icy fingers, but she stood firm, refusing to be swallowed. Suddenly, the lights began to flicker wildly. The shadows flickered and twisted painfully, as if in agony. "No! Stop!" the cloaked figure screeched. And in that moment of distraction, the shadows released their grip. Sarah darted forward, calling Ethan's name with all her might. The walls closed in around her, but her focus was sharp. She could feel Ethan's presence pulling her closer. Just ahead, she could see a small figure huddled beneath a flickering light. "Mommy!" He looked up, his face streaked with terror, but also recognition, like seeing a lighthouse through raging storms. "Stay strong, Ethan. I'm coming." Sarah pushed against the urgent pull of the shadows, ignoring the deafening whispers urging her to retreat. Just as she reached for him, the cloaked figure surged back, laughter pouring from its lips as the last vestiges of light disappeared. "You cannot save him," it howled, drawing power from the darkness that surged around them, weaving together into a dense wall of shadow. But Sarah's heart screamed that they could not be undone. With a primal cry, she thrust her hand forward, channeling every memory, every moment of love into that single act of defiance. The ground shook.
The shadows recoiled, and for a fleeting second, a blinding light pierced through, illuminating the space, revealing ancient symbols carved into the floor, pulsing with energy. But just as quickly, darkness clawed back, swallowing the moment, leaving Sarah gasping. "I will never give up," she shouted, clenching her fists, shadows creeping closer as if they could feel her determination. And then the laughter shifted, echoing in confusion and rage. "You dare defy the past!" The walls trembled, threatening to close in. The final battle had just begun, and Sarah felt the weight of the legacy she had unwittingly unearthed. What had she awakened by stepping back into this cursed place? As the shadows closed in again, a deep growl echoed from the darkness, something wild and unfathomable, and Sarah knew she had stepped into a horror far greater than she had prepared for. Now, only one question swirled in the chaos. Can she truly save Ethan? Or will they both be lost to the darkness forever? The ground shook again, sending tremors through Sarah's legs. She stumbled, heart racing as the shadows writhed like serpents, eager to ensnare her. The growl intensified, a guttural sound that reverberated against the walls, more animal than human. Panic clawed at her throat. She had no time to waste. "Ethan, hold on! I'm coming!" she screamed into the engulfing dark, her voice
nearly drowned by the cacophony of twisted laughter echoing in her ears. The light from the flickering bulbs struggled against the suffocating shadows, casting grotesque figures that seemed to mock her desperation. Then, as if coaxed by her fear, the shadows peeled back just enough to reveal a doorway. The faintest shimmer glinted beyond it, an echo of promise, like stars seen through a darkened sky. Without a second thought, Sarah darted toward the opening, her breath coming in sharp gasps, the stench of decay making her stomach churn. As she stepped through, a cold draft greeted her like icy fingers, and she found herself in a narrow corridor lined with twisted portraits. The eyes of the figures seemed to follow her, despair and dread creeping from their painted features. She forced herself onward, each step taking her deeper into the unknown. "Mommy!" Ethan's voice rang out, clearer now, filled with newfound urgency. It wrapped around her heart, a lifeline amidst the chaos. She quickened her pace, fear sharpening her senses. Every shadow felt like a threat, every creak of the floor a portent of doom. "Ethan, I'm coming!" The corridor twisted and turned, revealing doors on either side that whispered secrets she dared not investigate. The air grew heavier, laden with history soaked in terror. She could almost hear their cries, their last moments echoed in the peeling paint and dim light. Then Sarah stopped abruptly. Ahead, a door stood slightly ajar, glowing with an unnatural hue. The light beckoned her, seductive in its promise. But just beyond the threshold, she sensed a presence, lurking and waiting, hungry. Gripping the edges of the doorframe, she peered inside. Her breath hitched. Ethan was there, sitting on the floor, surrounded by swirling shadows that hovered menacingly. His little form trembled, and fear clutched at Sarah's chest like icy fingers. He was trapped in a circle of darkness, unable to escape, oblivious to the danger inching closer. "Don't move, Ethan! Stay where you are!" Her heart raced as she willed herself forward. She could feel the dark figure from before coiling in the corner of her mind, mocking her. "Such a noble effort," the voice hissed, slithering closer. "But you are too late. He's already mine." The shadows flickered, revealing grotesque shapes that twisted and formed armor around the cloaked figure. It stepped forward, triumph gleaming in its empty eyes.
Sarah clenched her fists, feeling the overwhelming urge to flee, but she couldn't abandon Ethan. "No!" she shouted, the sound reverberating off the walls. Lifting her hands, she focused on the light she had felt earlier, hoping to summon it once more. "Ethan, listen to me! You're stronger than this!" The shadows pulsed with anger and resistance, their grip on Ethan tightening as his wide eyes turned toward her, confusion mingling with fear. "Mommy?" His voice quivered, and Sarah could see him struggling against the darkness. Then it happened. The pulsating energy surged back, flooding her veins with warmth.
A burst of light erupted from her hands, illuminating the room and forcing the shadows to recoil. In that moment, time slowed. The cloaked figure shrieked, its form disintegrating into the air like smoke. With each passing second, the shadows dissipated, tears forming in their grip on Ethan. "Mommy!" Ethan cried, and in that heartbeat their eyes locked. But just as hope swelled in her chest, a rumble echoed through the walls, dark cracks spiderwebbing across the surface. The ground beneath them trembled violently. Shadows churned back to life, angry and threatening, enraged by Sarah's defiance. "No! No!" The eerie whispers filled the room, shrill and chaotic. She could sense an ancient power awakening, one that sought both of their souls. Desperation clawed at her as she reached for Ethan, heart racing in fear. But no sooner had they come close that the shadows surged forward, a dark tide pulling them apart. The very fabric of the world twisted and shifted, blurring the lines between safety and damnation. "Ethan!" she screamed, but the walls groaned, pulling him back into the depths of despair. Would she be able to break through the growing darkness in time to save him? Would the shadows finally claim them both? "What must I do?" she whispered, breaking under the weight of helplessness. Just as an unnerving silence enveloped the room, pregnant with the unknown, and in the deepening dark, a new voice emerged, but it was no longer human. "Welcome to your reckoning." The shadows tightened like a noose, around Ethan, around Sarah, around everything they thought they knew. Sarah's vision blurred as she fought a wave of disorientation. The room twisted, warping the edges of reality until she could no longer tell if she was standing still or being pulled apart. "Mommy!" Ethan's voice trembled, edged with panic. Each cry felt like a dagger, a reminder of the life that hung by a thread. She lunged forward, but it was as if an invisible wall held her back, pushing her away from him. She was losing him, losing everything. "Ethan!" The word clawed at her throat, but her voice sounded distant, like it was swallowed by the growing void. Panic surged, igniting in her chest like a wildfire. No, she wouldn't let this thing take him too. Her heart raced, and deep within, something primal ignited. All the fear, all the helplessness morphed into a singular burning desire to save her son. The shadows recoiled for a brief moment as a light flared from her hands, igniting the room in a golden glow. But the brightness also revealed the horror she hadn't fully registered before. Faces twisted in agony peeked through the walls, crying out silently, trapped in an everlasting torment. "Mommy!" Ethan's plea cracked through the cacophony of despair around them. "Stay strong," she shouted, forcing her feet forward, finding her resolve. But just as she imagined wrapping her arms around him, the ground quaked again, and the shadows lashed out, pulling him back. "What from us?" she cried out, her voice rising above the sinister whispers that filled the air. The darkness pulsed, as if contemplating her challenge. Silence hung for a beat, the atmosphere heavy with dread. "Simple," the voice hissed, now echoing from the very walls. "Your meat, your soul." It slithered through the room, wrapping around her limbs, numbing them as fear took hold.
She felt the icy grip of despair tightening around her heart. She couldn't let that happen. Ethan's eyes shone with unshed tears, desperation etched on his small face. "Mommy, I'm scared!" Sarah's chest tightened. She could feel the shadows thrumming with malevolence, eager to snuff out the light between them. But buried deep within, another voice whispered, a memory. Her mother's hand, warm and steady, guiding her through fear. "Ethan, think of the light! Remember our game, the one where we chase shadows?" His eyes flicked to hers, a brief spark of recognition igniting hope amidst the darkness. "No more shadows, only light." "Yes," she encouraged. "Close your eyes, focus on the light. Remember, my love, your love." She felt warmth radiating from within, swelling around her like a bubble of protection. As Ethan squeezed his eyes shut, she raised her hands again. The golden light exploded, breaking the suffocating darkness that clawed at them. The shadows shrieked, rebuffed by the brilliance that now filled the room. But darkness is cunning. Just when she thought victory was within reach, the floor underfoot began to shatter. Cracks widened, swallowing pieces of nothing in a hungry darkness, a gaping maw ready to devour. She felt her feet slipping, the ground tearing apart beneath them. "Mommy, help!" The scream sent a fresh bolt of panic through her veins. The courage she had summoned began to waver as the dark, sinister voice returned, low and taunting. "This isn't over. You think you've won." Time appeared to slow, the light flickering as cracks spread, webs of darkness threatened to consume them whole. Sarah felt the encroaching shadows, the cold tendrils brushing against her skin, ready to claim both her and her son. "Ethan, hold on to me, no matter what!" She reached out, but as she did, the lights dimmed, and the wall of shadows surged back, hungry for revenge. The last flicker of hope kindled in her chest, a flame in the storm, as she felt the ground drop away. And then everything went black. But as blackness enveloped them, a chilling laughter echoed in the air, promising vengeance and a hidden truth yet to uncover. What had they awakened in the darkness? And could they ever escape this nightmare that loomed just beyond the edge of comprehension? Sarah's heart raced as she plunged into the void, her stomach twisting in a knot of dread. For a moment there was nothing, only silence wrapped in darkness, swallowing her whole. But then, through the shadowy murk, she caught a dim flicker of light. Ethan! His form was hazy, yet unmistakable, reaching out.
"Mommy?" His voice echoed, reverberating in the emptiness around them. "Ethan!" she gasped, pushing her way toward him, desperate to close the distance. Each step felt like wading through thick mud. The shadows curled around her ankles, trying to pull her down. "I'm here! Just hold on! I won't leave you!" But the air grew heavier. She fought to breathe, the oppressive darkness clawing at her mind. Figures began rising from the ground. They were distorted, faces twisted in pain, mouths gaping open in silent screams. Wispy shadows coalesced, drawn towards the flicker of her light. "Mommy!" Ethan's cry broke her focus. The light dimmed as her heart buckled. She couldn't let him go. "Stay away!" she screamed at the shapes, fury igniting within her. With every ounce of strength, she thrust her hands forward, blasting a wave of golden light. It erupted like a firework, illuminating the darkness in wild strokes. The figures recoiled, their shrieks morphing into whispers that swirled around her. "Take her! It's time," one hissed, its voice like nails on a chalkboard. "No! Get away!"
Her voice erupted into raw terror, launching herself toward Ethan again. Suddenly, the ground beneath Ethan crumbled, a gaping chasm appearing where he stood. Sarah lunged, instinctively reaching for him, but her fingers brushed against empty air. He teetered on the edge, terror in his wide eyes. "Mom, help me!" "Ethan, grab my hand!" She extended her arm, feeling the abyss tug on her, threatening to rip them apart. But darkness is relentless. It swirled around them like a tempest, clawing at her resolve. "You think you can fight us?" the voice taunted, now punctuated by the howls of the lost souls, their anguish rising like an unholy symphony. "Join us." The flicker of hope dimmed again. The warm glow that had enveloped them flickered and flickered like a dying flame. "No!" The defiance in her heart surged anew, the desperation transforming into a roaring flame. She pushed against the darkness, feeling her connection to Ethan deepen. "Think of our game, the light, our love!" she shouted into the void, her voice carrying the weight of every mother's fierce love. Instantly, she felt a warmth building around her, almost palpable. Memories of laughter, joyful moments surged forward. A burst of golden light ignited once more, and the shadows screamed in agony. They recoiled, retreating and collapsing into themselves. The black mass trembled, but not before grasping one last time at Ethan, its claws brushing against him. His desperate grip faltered. He was slipping. "Mom! Ethan!" With a final surge, Sarah called forth every ounce of strength, summoning the light to engulf them. The walls around her flickered, fractures appearing as they battled the shadows together. And then, miraculously, the floor twisted beneath them, warping into a solid ground. They surged forward, the darkness retreating in waves, snarling promises of revenge. "Got you!" She pulled Ethan into her embrace, breathless and shaking, the blackness
swirling away, consumed by their light. But just when she thought safety was near, a rumble shattered the moment. The room dipped and swayed, as if the very structure of reality was unraveling. Shadows surged back, rushing at them, angry and desperate. "This isn't over! You will pay!" In that moment of chaotic fear, the laughter returned, echoing louder, teasing, gnawing at her sanity. What had they truly unleashed? What awaited them in the depths of darkness still unseen? The nightmare wasn't finished yet. The next horror was just waiting to be revealed. The ground shook harder, sending Sarah and Ethan wobbling, gripping each other tightly as they stood their ground. Shadows writhed at the edges of their newfound sanctuary, their malignant presence reasserting itself, swirling like a tempest in a bottle. "Mommy, what's happening?" Ethan's voice trembled, barely above a whisper, his wide eyes filled with a raw mixture of fear and confusion. "I don't know, honey," Sarah said, her throat tight. "We need to find a way out, together." She glanced around, desperate for a hint of escape. The room they stood in was no longer just a void, but had transformed into a warped, disorienting space, filled with distorted reflections of themselves. Each image was tainted, shadowy fingers creeping into view, giving voice to an upcoming horror that snaked around them. Suddenly, through the oppressive darkness, a figure emerged, tall and twisted, its limbs bent at unnatural angles. It slid forward with a glide that felt soulless. The echo of its laughter sent chills trickling down Sarah's spine. "You think the light can save you?" it taunted, the sound like breaking glass, sharp and unnerving. "You are only prolonging your suffering." "Shut up!" Sarah screamed, her heart pounding, the desperation rising like bile in her throat. She couldn't let fear paralyze her.
Without thinking, she summoned the golden light again, forcing it outwards like a protective shield. It flared to life and illuminated the figure, momentarily banishing the shadows surrounding it. But the shadow wraith howled in fury, recoiling as the light enveloped it. "You cannot hold the darkness at bay forever," it huffed. Its voice dripped with malice. "Soon you will wish you welcomed us back into your heart. Feel the weight of our despair." Suddenly, the whispers from the shadows erupted into a cacophony, drowning out Sarah's thoughts. Pleas, cries of despair, angry rants, all mingling, swirling into a sickening tide. Each word felt like a physical blow, smacking against her mind, lapping at the edges of her resolve. "Ethan, close your eyes!" she shouted, wrapping her arms around him as tightly as she could. But it was too late. The shadows rushed in, tendrils wrapping around them, feral arms reaching to pull them apart. She felt the weight of whatever specters lay just beyond comprehension, thrumming against her sanity. "Mommy, I'm scared," Ethan whimpered, his voice thin. I know. Suddenly, the shadows flickered. In that split second, she caught the briefest glimpse of
A door, shrouded in light, flickering in and out of view. It was her only chance. "We have to go! Follow me!" With her heartbeat thunderous in her ears, she took a step toward it. "Don't let her go!" The chorus of voices howled in unison, the shadows writhing angrily. Sarah tightened her grip on Ethan's hand. "Run!" she yelled, dragging him forward with all her strength. The darkness clutched at their legs, pulling them back, as she felt the gravity of despair weighing heavy on her soul. As they reached the threshold, a chilling howl erupted around them. Frigid winds, fueled by rage, surged toward them, chilling Sarah's very bones. "You cannot escape. The darkness is in you." Then, just as they stepped through, a harsh laughter exploded, echoing in her mind. "Welcome home." Everything went black again. Had she truly escaped, or had they merely slipped deeper into the trap? Confusion gripped her. Sarah struggled to comprehend their surroundings, feeling the pull of darkness that still haunted her thoughts. "Mommy?" Ethan's soft voice broke the stillness, reminding Sarah he was still with her. But where were they now? Panic clawed at her throat. Shadows lurked at the edges of her periphery, shifting and breathing, just waiting for any sign of weakness. Then she heard it, a whisper calling her name, softer now, enticing. "Sarah, come play." Who was it? Could she trust it? The faint flicker of the dark door behind them pulsed with ominous energy, drumming in sync with her racing heart. What now awaited them beyond this darkness? The darkness finally released its grip, and Sarah stumbled into the light, breath coming in ragged gasps. The air was thick with the scent of dust, and something more sinister, like old blood. The room around them was dimly lit, revealing cracked walls, peeling paint, and flickering lights that barely fought off the shadows. Ethan clung to her side, eyes wide, filled with a mix of fear and determination. "Where are we?" he asked, voice trembling. Sarah could feel her heart racing, but she couldn't show fear. She had to be strong, for him. "I don't know, but we'll find a way out together," Sarah said, squeezing his hand. The shadows loomed over them like a thick blanket, ready to engulf them again. She refused to turn back. Fear couldn't rule her anymore. They moved cautiously, almost tiptoeing, through the eerie environment. Whispers snaked their way into her ears, words half-formed, like fragments of lost souls begging for recognition. It sent chills down her spine. But one thing stood out amid the clamoring chaos, a familiar voice. It was haunting and sweet, echoing from somewhere deep inside, calling for them to remember. "Mommy?" Ethan's voice barely made a sound, clipped by anxiety. She halted, feeling the presence of something unknown. "Listen closely," Sarah instructed, eyes darting around. "We need to focus.
Remember the light, our game. Picture it. Ethan nodded, uncertainty flickering in his gaze. He took a deep breath
and closed his eyes. Sarah knew she had to encourage him, to draw upon that little spark of hope they still had. Let it surround you. Let love and courage shine through. Suddenly, vibrant warmth pulsed through the air, illuminating the murky depths. A glow emerged around Ethan, extending toward her as well, merging the threads of their essence. It was their bond, a lifeline against the encroaching shadows. "Keep it alive, buddy," she urged, feeling strength surge through her. The flickering lights brightened alongside their united focus. But the shadows shrieked in outrage, swarming toward them with ferocity. "You think your light can banish us," they hissed, voices layered in ancient malice. "We are woven into the very fabric of this place." "Then we'll rip that fabric to shreds," Sarah shouted, heart thundering as she tightened her grip on Ethan's hand. Taking a deep breath, she channeled every ounce of her love, her fear, her fury into one radiant burst of light. The shadows recoiled, groaning and twisting as the golden glow expanded, illuminating the corners of the room, pushing the malevolence back. "No, you cannot escape what you truly are." Ethan opened his eyes, his expression shifting from fear to fierce determination. "Mommy, let's push them away." His voice rang with clarity, and suddenly the light enveloped them both. As they stood united, a wave of brilliance surged through. The shadows shrank back in horror, revealing the remnants of lost spirits trapped within the walls, their anguished faces flickering and pleading for release. Something deep within Sarah stirred. Could they help them? "We have to break this curse," she realized. "Together!" Ethan exclaimed, and with joyful defiance they took a step forward, their united light piercing the core of the darkness. "Let them go!" Sarah yelled, raising her arms high, channeling all their love for those lost, igniting warmth as they fought against the despair clinging at their heels. The echoes of the tormented spirits merged with her voice, swirling into a crescendo that filled the room. As the light emanated from them, the shadows howled in rage and pain. "Stop!" they screamed, but the warmth could not be denied any longer. Walls trembled, cracking under the surge of energy. Shadows wrapped around Sarah and Ethan, but the pulsing light pushed them away. "We are not afraid," Sarah shouted, voice growing stronger until it filled every inch of the chamber. In a blinding flash, the shadows recoiled, unraveling like tattered threads from a perfect fabric. The air thickened with a brilliant glow, wrapping around them like a warm embrace. The figures trapped in turmoil broke free, their harrowing cries morphing into soft, serene whispers. And then, just as suddenly as it began, silence enveloped them. The once suffocating darkness evaporated, replaced by warmth and light streaming through the fractured walls that now pulsed with life. They'd done it! They were breaking through! "Mommy!" Ethan laughed, joy pouring forth as he turned to Sarah, his face radiant. Her heart soared, and tears glistened in her eyes. But in that moment of bliss, the ground quaked again. The presence, the wraith of despair rose behind them, furious and intent on reclaiming its prize. "This isn't over. You will pay for your defiance." "Run!" Sarah shouted, yanking Ethan toward a newly revealed exit. It glimmered like a beacon of hope, a promise of safety just beyond the abyss. They charged forward, exhilarating energy coursing headlong into the light. The shadows lunged, but the light held strong, pushing back like an unseen force, refusing to yield as they raced onward. Bursting through the door, they stumbled into the fresh night air, gasping for breath as the darkness dissipated behind them. The world beyond was alive with stars, bright and untainted. "We're free!" Ethan shouted as he danced around her, laughter spilling into the night. Sarah grasped him tightly and pulled him close, tears of relief spilling down her cheeks.
"This is just the beginning," she whispered, pressing her forehead against his. But a final, haunting laughter echoed in the recesses of her mind, dark and threatening, assuring her that the past might not forgive so easily. In the shadows of the world they had left behind, the remnants still whispered. But they had untethered the silence. They had fought for their love, and she would continue to fight. As long as they had hope, they weren't done yet. She knew they could never stop running, never stop fighting, because true darkness always lurked, waiting for that very moment when hope might falter. But Sarah stood firm, eyes fixed on the horizon ahead, heart ignited by the courage they had forged together. "Let's go home," she said softly, leading Ethan into the world bathed in starlight, ready for whatever came next. If you enjoyed this wild adventure, this is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now to our channel so you don't miss out on exclusive stories like this one. And don't wait even one more second to smash that like button. It helps the algorithm and ensures more thrilling tales reach eager readers like you. Flood the comments section with your reactions and wild theories about the twists we just explored. Let your creative spirit run free as we dive deeper into the unknown together. And finally, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this epic conclusion. The power of our storytelling community lies in your hands.